Deadpool.
Deadpool and Wolverine, aka Deadpool 3, which means spoilers ahead.
TNMP, the Nerdy Misfit Podcast, with your hosts, Connor O'Neill and Matthew Hughes.
What is up, everybody?
Hello.
Welcome back to another episode of the Nerdy Misfit Podcast.
Well, back to you, Connor. It's been a couple weeks.
Yeah, we
Since
actually
we've
haven't recorded.
recorded.
Yeah, we haven't recorded in a while.
Crazy. I think the last 2 or 3 episodes we pre-recorded a little bit.
Yeah, was had a vacation. You've had some busy days as well.
Just work, and more work.
But here we are with one of the few superhero films that we're going to be talking about this year.
Oh no, there's still 2 left. 2 or 3 left. But
Deadpool.
Deadpool and Wolverine, aka Deadpool 3, which means spoilers ahead. We will be dissecting, questioning.
Yeah, if you want a
chatting.
spoiler-free discussion, Matt has
did a very
has
quick,
like a 56-second short for you
and
to
I
check out
repeat
on
myself
YouTube
2 or 3 times in it. So there's that.
there you go. So it's more like a 20-second short.
Exactly.
But Deadpool, Deadpool 3, first Deadpool's introduction to the MCU.
Technically, yep.
Wolverine's introduction to the MCU.
Also technically, yep.
So what did you think? Should we rate it 5 stars since that's how a lot of people rate it, or should we rate it out of 100?
What about 10?
Well, I was going to say, Rotten Tomatoes is technically out of 100.
I mean, okay, I'll just switch my 10 to a 100, I guess. What is 75 out of 100?
Yeah, I kind of agree. Maybe it depends on what you are expecting from the film.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I think we're both in agreement that perhaps the actual story is not the strongest. But if you're going into a Deadpool film for story, I think you're already probably going in for the wrong reason.
Yes
for
and
me,
no.
you're going in for a good time.
You're going
for
in
entertainment.
for Ryan Reynolds.
You're going in to laugh.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. You're going in for entertainment and for laughing. And if you don't laugh during a Deadpool film, that's a failure.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, the first Deadpool film, I haven't seen them because you watched them recently.
Yes.
I think the Deadpool, from what I remember, the first movie had a solid storyline overall.
Yes, it was decent, but it was also kind of the origin.
Yeah. I think Deadpool 2
helps
is
write
much
itself.
as
Deadpool 2 was weak.
it was weak. Yeah, I mean, as much as I liked Cable, not that they did him dirty, but it wasn't the greatest.
You're a big Cable fan. Though.
I am a big Cable
So
fan.
Could be that you're also being maybe a little bit more critical.
No, that's what I mean. I don't think they did Cable dirty. I think he looked great.
Yeah, he looked well.
I think Josh Brolin did a great job. I just think the whole build-up for Deadpool 2 of being like, we're going to make a team. It's going to be the X-Force.
But they did it in a funny way.
I know.
Obviously, some characters also were quite different than they are. I thought the Juggernaut looked really good in Deadpool 2. Way better than this one.
Don't you know who I am? I'm the Juggernaut. Bitch.
But this one, Deadpool 3, had tons of fun cameos / even just roles, not even cameos.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's really only one cameo that is important, in quotations. The rest are supporting characters, really.
Yeah, they have a role. They do something in this story.
So we can just... How do you want to do this?
I guess we can open up with just the rough general plot, I guess, of the...
Yeah, I have a 4-sentence summary, and you can chime in at any point. Basically, Deadpool and Wolverine. Deadpool's depressed. He has a little time-traveling multiverse device at the end.
Which we saw at the end of 2.
Yeah. And he jumps to the main Earth, which is officially confirmed, Earth 616.
Which he does because Vanessa, his girlfriend of the whole trilogy at this point, apparently wants him to do something unselfish or for someone else.
Which doesn't make sense, but okay. Anyway, so he eventually goes to Earth 616, has a conversation with Happy. We see a lot of fun little Easter eggs.
That we've seen throughout the MCU.
Yeah, we see the thing that proof that Tony has a heart. We see the Captain America prototype shield from
Iron Man 2.
From Iron Man 2. We also see the Iron Man helmet from Iron Man 2, I think, where young Peter Parker's wearing it.
And also just, it was a pretty fun conversation with Happy in terms of just
I think it also clarifies Happy's character.
Ryan Reynolds and they're bouncing off really well.
Yeah, Jon Favreau
is and if you know anything about the MCU, you know that Jon Favreau he is iconic now as one of the founding fathers of the MCU.
Yeah, I mean he's one of the first characters from the MCU going back
director of Iron Man 1.
Director of Iron Man 1, literally the backbone of the very beginning.
Exactly.
And he had such a minor role in Iron Man 1 where he was just the bodyguard to Tony.
Bodyguard and driver.
And then in Iron Man 2, I think that's when he stepped up as a character alone. The best part of Iron Man 2, and you can agree with this, is the briefcase suit scene.
Yep.
Like Happy driving and him trying to like go back and forth, trying to crush Whiplash. And he's like, go for the case, go for the case. Yeah. And it's like such a fun scene. I think he also directed Iron Man 2. He did not direct Iron Man 3.
Did not, yeah.
But Happy, even like the fact that he went from...
He's in the animated version of Marvel content.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a real character now.
He's been in Spider-Man shows, like the Spider-Man movies as well.
Yep.
He was in Endgame. Like, he pushed out of just Iron Man, where you can say that certain characters are just particularly in character movies.
Yes.
That are not core people.
He's an example of what makes the MCU feel like a universe.
Yeah, connected.
Right? Like, he's not a hero. He's just a character that obviously exists amongst all of the other hero movies because it makes sense that he should.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're in New York or LA or wherever the Stark Industries is at that time, then it makes sense that you will see him.
Yeah. I think really the only other character that's really done that and that's more prevalent now is Thunderbolt Ross.
Yes.
Because he was in the first Incredible, he came back for Civil War, and now he's going to be in the new Captain America movie. Otherwise, there's not really any other supporting characters I can think of.
That kind of make their way through
the film
without being a major...
Without being directly a hero.
Yeah,
like
one
you
of the
can be like, oh, I mean, Wasp was in the first Ant-Man movie, and she's made it into the Endgame, and I'm like, that's a hero, so that doesn't really count.
Not the same.
That'd be different if, like, Ned and Zendaya were in, like, Endgame
all the other
and Infinity Wars.
In other
like,
films, for sure.
If they were more important. But otherwise, yeah, I think Thunderbolt Ross and Happy... You can kind of make the same argument for Pepper Potts, too.
Yeah.
But anyways, we're getting
Deadpool gets rejected by Happy.
He gets
like
off
Happy's
rejected.
all like, oh yeah, I'm like the pre-interview.
Yeah. And obviously Deadpool doesn't get it. He jumps back to his timeline, gives up being a hero. We jump 6 years into the future, which is now 2024.
He's broken up with Vanessa.
And he's a car salesman for
he's
Honda.
Midlife
Odysseys.
crisis.
Yeah.
Even though Deadpool can live past a normal life, but
he works with Peter at the car dealership. It's his birthday. We have this quick thing where Deadpool thinks he's getting watched. He goes upstairs with all the supporting characters we've seen from the first two. So Colossus, Negasonic, Teenage Warhead, Yukio,
I think.
Vanessa, the ex-girlfriend, Peter, obviously the taxi driver. I cannot think of his name. I can't think of his name on the top of my head. Who else is there? Colossus and
the only guy that's not really there was his name
T.J. Miller's character.
Yeah, because people don't like T.J. Miller, right?
T.J. Miller hates Ryan Reynolds.
Why?
Because they were doing takes on Deadpool 2, and I guess Ryan Reynolds really wanted to do like one extra take of it, and he wanted to try a new line. So he did this new line, and T.J. Miller like just felt like it was just Ryan Reynolds attacking T.J. Miller himself and not like character to character. So then T.J. Miller was like, not happening anymore. So there was like some beef that T.J. Miller had with, but also T.J. Miller's kind of, I've never been the biggest fan of him.
I've read from, what's the Silicon Valley, like even a lot of the actors on Silicon Valley were not the biggest fans of him either. So
he was great in Big Hero 6. I'm pretty sure
like
he voiced Fred.
It could be a him issue maybe.
Yeah.
But
anyways.
Dopinder is the name of the
Oh,
taxi
right.
driver.
Yes. Okay, cool.
And he's hilarious.
He's a great character. There's one other character too there. I think it's like Shatterstar or Longshot. Some like C-list level mutant with the red head.
From the X-Force.
From the X-Force. Anyways, all of a sudden TVA shows up and they're like, yo, you're going to come with us. And then he goes, meets Mr. Paradox. And they're like, yo, universe is dying. You're going to be this new guy to like help us end universes. By the way, here's this box that's going to destroy your world. Your world destroyed because Logan died and everyone, yay Logan.
Yeah, the reason he's brought in is because the anchor being which is like the first introduction of such a thing in
Yeah.
the MCU, an anchor being, which happens to be Logan from the Logan film, passes away, obviously, because I'm assuming most people have seen Logan. And he apparently, his death is now causing their universe to
Crumble, fall
crumble.
apart,
Yeah.
destroy, whatevs.
So now he's like, oh, you can be a hero, Deadpool, and just leave all your people behind, leave your universe to die, and you'll be...
A-okay, because
Yeah.
you're working with us. And he's like, no, I can just go find a Wolverine. So then he jumps, sees some Easter eggs here. We find a new Wolverine. He's a drunk, alcoholic. He brings him back to the TVA. And then that's when Deadpool finds out that Mr. Paradox is going against the TVA, doing his own little thing.
And that he's just nuking a bunch
Yeah.
of universe. He just... And this is in relation to the Loki season, first 2 seasons of Loki, which is that he's definitely of the mindset of season 1's version of the TVA, where he's like, okay, this universe, get rid of it.
Yeah.
Where obviously Loki in season 2 is like the great tree or whatever, and he's
Yeah.
kind of resurrected or brought to life a lot of them.
Refurbished. Yeah.
A lot of the universes, and I guess this Paradox fellow is just not into that.
Yeah.
So he wants to just not have to wait for the ember of this universe to die, which could take thousands of years, and he'd rather just get rid of it now since it's already dying.
Easy peasy. So then Deadpool doesn't like that, so they end up, Deadpool and Wolverine get sent to the Void. We get introduced to some more supporting characters. We'll get into more of that after. We meet the quotation villain of the movie, Cassandra Nova, Charles Xavier's sister. And they're like, yo, she's like, well, basically you're going to get killed in the Void. So
Sounds like she had a deal with Paradox, and
Yeah.
then he went against her deal, and then she shows out of the Void, and then she's like, oh, you're doing this. I'm going to destroy all the universes, and all that will exist is the Void. And then Deadpool and Wolverine's whole goal is to stop this from happening, and then everyone happy ever after.
And then Paradox gets arrested by the TVA. Wolverine now stays on the main Deadpool Earth, and that's basically the film.
So, from a plot perspective,
Flat.
it's I didn't really care for the villain either.
Well, it's just like...
Both villains, I guess, both Paradox.
Yeah,
I was
Mr.
surprised
Paradox,
that Deadpool didn't just kill Paradox, but I
Yeah.
guess he's also part of the TVA, and then they would just go back in time and bring him back. This is the other issue whenever you bring the TVA. They have the ability to just time travel and fix stuff, so why aren't they just time traveling and fixing stuff before stuff happens? This is the problem with time travel in
What is
general.
Civil War II from the comics?
Yes. So it's
Yeah.
not the biggest fan when they're included because of stuff like that, where one, Deadpool surprisingly is not trigger happy and lets him, he's fine. And then, yeah, the Charles Xavier's sister, she seemed too OP to just kind of lose, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially to 2 characters very reliant on physical.
Combat.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, well, I wasn't the biggest fan of that, but like I said, it's what are you going into the Deadpool film for? You're not going in to get huge exposition and
Yeah.
lore of the MCU or just what's going on. You're going to laugh. You're going to see what.
It's a
Jokes are
companion
there.
movie to the MCU. If you
Yeah.
don't watch this movie,
But well, we don't know.
we don't know
actually.
yet, actually, but we'll get into that a little bit.
But
But
I see
as
what
a
you're saying.
whole, like, it's
How the impact is more, hey, Wolverine, Deadpool,
could be in your next MCU movie.
or at least talked about or something.
Yeah, mentioned.
But I thought overall the jokes were pretty solid.
Yeah, jokes landed.
Lots of millennial humor.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of millennial humor. Soundtrack was amazing.
I would
Even
agree.
just the opening sequence was fantastic. So I can't complain about that. I'm probably gonna find it on Spotify and add it to my favorites. It's a pretty good mix of songs in there.
Yeah,
for sure.
the actual like soundtrack of the film is good. I mean, a lot of the songs have Easter eggs.
Yes.
Like the fact that the Greatest Showman plays for a couple
I think A Million
seconds.
Dreams plays for a few seconds.
It's either that or the actual opening song. I can't remember exactly. But obviously, Bye 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 by NSYNC. That is a reference to X-Men 2. Because they're all driving in the car next to, and they play the radio, and that's the first song that comes on. Lady in Red is obviously reference to Lady Deadpool. Bunch of the other songs. I mean, Grease. That's just a reference to Hugh Jackman being at musicals and stuff.
We got The Power of Love. I'm a rambling man. You belong to me. Like you said, the Lady in Red. I'm with you. Avril Lavigne.
Which is a reference because Avril Lavigne's Canadian.
The Greatest Show. So you're right.
Yep.
You're the one that I want.
You are the one I want.
I'll be seeing you. Make me lose control. You're all I need to get by. Good Riddance, which was the first of the for the credits. That was the first song I played when it showed all the old
Honestly,
X-Men
probably
stuff.
one of my favorite mid/post credit scenes.
Seeing all the different
It almost
Fox
makes me
films.
tear up, like just seeing
Yeah.
like the progression of
They
all the
did
characters.
A lot of the X-Men films, they did Elektra.
They did the Fantastic Four
Fantastic-
films too.
both of them.
Both of
Yeah.
yeah. Like it was crazy to see just
like
like
both iterations. Sorry,
Yeah,
like
both
obviously there's
iterations,
Two,
yeah.
two Fantastic Fours, but even the rebooted version,
yeah,
which
like
a lot of people were
yeah.
in love with. But
But it was just really cool. I think like with Time of Your Life playing by Green Day, and then just seeing like how young Hugh Jackman was when this role first
yeah,
came to
he's
him.
so
like
young.
it's crazy.
even like Patrick Stewart,
Yeah. You never realize that he aged until you look at like the first X-Men to like what he looks like now, and I'm like, dang, you finally
even
aged there.
McKellen too. He's
They're both getting up there. So
they're both old men now, and they were old men when they started.
yeah.
But I think Ian McKellen I think is 85.
Yeah, and Patrick Stewart's 84.
Great actors though.
Great.
Hilarious that they're in in comic book. It's such iconic characters in
Yeah.
comic films.
I mean, they could not, in my opinion, I think Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy were great
Great castings.
casting to show younger versions
But-
of them.
I think, and Ryan Reynolds has mentioned this in interviews, I believe, as well. Hugh Jackman is such a daunting task to overcome as a recast for Wolverine.
Yeah.
And I think, likewise, when it comes to Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, those are also going to, like, if you ever cast old men versions of,
Those characters, you're doing
It's-
them dirty.
it's so hard to replace them because they're just amazing actors in general, but they just are the characters now. Like,
It's
it's just who you picture. And it's also, when you look at animation and stuff from that point on, they're so linked to like that look.
100%.
But let's get into some of the other fun stuff other than just the jokes. I mean, hilariously, I just finished Gossip Girl a couple weeks ago, and there was a Gossip Girl joke, which
Yeah.
obviously
206 pounds.
Yeah.
And 7.
if you're watching Gossip Girl, which is funny because obviously Ryan Reynolds is married to Blake Lively, and Blake
Yeah.
Lively starred in
Yeah, literally.
Gossip Girl.
So like we can go through some of the supporting characters, which are obviously huge references to past.
Do you want to
characters.
start? Do you want to? Can you go by their appearance in terms of how they appear? in
Yeah.
this
So
film?
I mean, like we can start off
obviously,
things
first
first.
one is Wolverine.
Wolverines, plural, because there was a
Plurals.
few of them. The ones that we see are an actual iteration of Old Man Logan,
Yes.
like real, just old man. He's got the gun, like get off my
Grizzly,
porch kind of
yep.
thing. We see a version of Uncanny X-Men, I believe it is, issue 151, and it's the one that Wolverine's just on like the cross, and there's like skulls everywhere. That's just a comic book issue, like cover. Like that's not even a storyline. That's
Yeah.
just a reference to a cover of a comic. We see comic book accurate sized Wolverine, little short
The
guy,
short one,
the
yeah.
short king. We see first appearance Wolverine because Wolverine first appeared in a Hulk comic, not a Wolverine or X-Men comic. He first appeared in a Hulk comic, so we saw that.
We did see the Hulk also.
See a reflection of the Hulk. Age of Apocalypse, Wolverine. So that's the one where he's missing a hand.
Yep.
And he continues to punch the heck out of Deadpool. And then obviously the one that everyone was like, "Oh my gosh," Henry Cavill, Calvarine.
Big fan cast.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of
Oh,
people.
and Patch too.
Yeah,
but-
big fan cast in terms of people when they discuss who could replace Hugh Jackman. It's a pretty popular fan casting for sure, and it is funny because this might be the second or third time that a Marvel film's done a fan cast for something that
John
most likely
Krasinski.
will not be a real casting, as unfortunately we now know with the Fantastic Four actually being casted. Which I am sad about, but I'm also not sad at the same time because Pedro Pascal is popping off right now.
He is popping off.
So and he's a great actor.
Yeah.
He is a true chameleon. He can do so many. So I think he'll be a good Reed Richards. It's just
With the style they're going for, yes.
yes.
Which we'll get into a future episode of the future of the MCU and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, so first off, we see all the different Wolverines, and then we see this one, which seems to be Days of Future Past style inspired. Excuse me, Captain. Anyways, Days of Future Past inspired, where it seems like he let his team down. We don't exactly know what happened, but whatevs. So that's Wolverine. Moving on for the 5 big character cameos.
As we get to the Void.
Gentleman, he's got his hood on. We don't know who he is, but if you recognize the voice, you're like, that's your boy.
And it's Chris Evans.
Chris Evans. He comes down
and the bait is we've already seen Captain America.
Yeah.
In the TVA, just seeing him. We've also seen him in clips for what Deadpool's looking like when he wanted to join the Avengers, and we've also seen Thor. So the mindset for I think the audience is already Avengers focused.
Yeah.
So you see Chris Evans, and obviously a lot of people are like, oh, it's a form of Cap.
Captain America. We also see a Captain America shield in that area
and
moments before.
Nothing else you see. You see he's got a hood on, everything's but, and boom,
He says, "Flame on,"
and he's the Human Torch.
He's the Human Torch.
Deadpool's reaction is funny because obviously he thinks it's Captain America.
Yeah. He's like, he's gonna say Avengers Assemble, and then just
And he's just
flame
like, oh.
on. It's like, oh, this is awkward.
What's your I'm dying.
Next couple cameos in that small scene, which are kind of irrelevant because one of them dies right away. We see Sabretooth from the very first X-Men film, not Lee Schreiber
yes.
from the other ones. It's the fight that everyone's been waiting for 20 plus years. And it's just Wolverine just takes him out.
Yeah,
just
instantly.
Gone.
Also, giant references to the Mad Max.
Oh, yeah.
In
there's
the Void.
multiple references.
The Void is just basically the
Mad Max.
Yeah, and then they
Furiosa.
come in with the cars and the ridiculous
Which are
looking
all
cars.
different references. One of them is the Fantastic Four car. One of them, I'm pretty
Yes.
sure, is a Chimichanga truck.
And it just gives
yeah.
off, obviously, they're just playing into the Mad Max vibe.
Definitely. We also see Pyro, who is the same actor from X2. So that was and X3.
Pretty much all of them were repeat of their or a lot of them were like
Mutants we've seen
doing
before,
their roles again.
but only a few of them were actually.
But
so like,
Ryan Reynolds definitely went out on a limb to try and get a lot of people
as many as they
who were
could, for
interested in
sure.
coming back
Yeah.
to play their character one more time. One last hurrah, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of the hurrahs, those are the few cameos we see there. We see Toad, but it's not the
Not
actor
the
that
same.
played Darth Maul.
But the same style of Toad we saw from the X-Men
Yeah.
films back in the day.
Yeah. And then those are the big cameos there. And then they go to the Void. We see Lyeth, which is the creature from season 1, episode 5 of Loki. And then when we get to the area of Cassandra Nova, we see versions of Juggernaut. We see Psylocke. We see kind of a version of Lady Deathstrike that we saw in X2. Basically, the original X-Men trilogy. We see villains, one-off characters, all played by different actors and actors, including Juggernaut, a different actor.
And their home base is
Inside Giant Man.
Yeah.
A dead version of Giant Man.
version,
Which
of-
is reference to Old Man Logan.
yes.
And then they go into the Void. We see a version of Deadpool. We see Nicepool. And we see Dogpool. So that was fun. And then we get to the
big ones.
the big ones. First up, we see Elektra. Jennifer Garner comes back. She's rocking it. She looks great as
They
Elektra.
make a reference to Daredevil,
Yeah,
obviously,
she's
which
like,
is
"Ugh."
Ben Affleck, which, if you live under a rock, they were married. I don't think it's the...
point of it, but
But it's just funny because I don't think they have the best relationship currently. Obviously, they have kids and stuff together, but...
yeah.
So, unlikely that they were going to get both of them.
Yeah.
But Elektra was kind of epic to see.
Next one, which I was genuinely shocked about. I mean, I was shocked about 2 of the 4 here. Is Wesley Snipes coming out as Blade?
Which gave him a Guinness World Record, I believe, for the longest time between Marvel roles, as well as being a Marvel character for the longest time.
Yeah, because the first Blade came out in 1998, and Blade Trinity, I think, came out in 2004. So this So it's been 20 years since he's been Blade on screen.
On screen, yes.
And it's so funny because you watch interviews with him and he's like, you know, like Ryan Reynolds, like everyone thought we had beef, but we were just kind of like hyping it up and like we don't really talk too much. He's like, but when Ryan Reynolds randomly calls you in the middle of the day, you just got to pick up, you know?
That seems to be a lot of the. I saw Chris Evans similar
Yeah.
interview where he was like, Ryan called, and whenever Ryan calls, you know it's gonna be something good.
Yeah. Because he got called for Free Guy for that like cameo.
Yep.
But anyways, yeah, so Blade walks in, which was super great. He looks great. I was so clean.
Speaking of clean,
Remy LeBeau
he looked great.
walks in, comic book accurate to the T.
To the T.
Of
Jacket,
Gambit.
even the horribly colored like chest
Purple,
plate thing.
Yeah.
Helmet.
Walks in Gambit, played by Channing Tatum, which, for those who don't know, the reason why it's Channing Tatum, it's not just like, oh, Channing Tatum's friends with people. It's Channing Tatum was casted as Gambit, I believe, back in 2010. After the X-Men Origins Wolverine movie came out, everyone loved Gambit. They're like, this is such a great character. Channing Tatum was like, yo, I'd love to play him. So then he ends up getting casted because after X-Men Origins Wolverine, people wanted a Deadpool movie and a Gambit movie. And obviously, eventually, we got Deadpool. But Gambit happened. They got a director. That director quit. They got another director. That director quit. They got another director. That director quit. And then, so they lost all three directors. They tried to find a script and everything like that. They got it started, blah, 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 blah. Time passed to Disney in talks with Fox to buy Fox or whatever. And then they successfully do. And what does Disney do? They cancel all of the future projects. So now we are 15 years later, basically, and Channing Tatum finally gets his dream role that he's wanted to play Gambit on the big screen.
And he wanted to play Gambit
Yeah.
in general because I think Channing Tatum's from Alabama, I believe. And
so?
I believe Gambit is from Louisiana. Now, those are, I think, a couple states apart. I think there's Mississippi or something in between them.
Man, it's got a whole Wikipedia page.
But it's a southern state, and I know that he was really excited to play, like, represent the South kind of a character that's more southern than just your typical Eastern
Channing
/
Tatum
Western.
auditioned for the X-Men Origins Wolverine Gambit role. So this predates 2009.
Yeah. So he was great. I know that you weren't the biggest fan of perhaps the heavy jokes on not understanding Gambit.
People are memeing it to be Jeff number 2. So that's like the 22 Jump Street reference. Like, my name is Jeff. Like, they're like, this is the new.
Which I thought they were just playing up the accent to.
Yeah.
Because even in 97, it was more understandable, but well-placed accent.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Gambit was scheduled to release in March 13, 2020.
2020. Yeah, so that was nice. Also, his fight choreography was solid when he did fight.
There was some good.
Looked good. He had a staff, which we didn't see at first because he was like, my powers, the cards go boom.
Ooh, so you're a close-up magician.
Which is like, I don't know, that kind of feels like you put down his powers a bit, but.
I mean, he's not entirely wrong in some parts.
But
and then, the last one of the mini group is X-23, Laura. She comes, and honestly, she looked great. She's rocking just the straight black clothes, which is pretty common in the comics.
I liked when she was about to fight and she put on the glasses for when she was a little girl from
from
the
Logan,
film.
from the gas station I think they go to find them. I thought that was just a fun little extra nod, but she does great.
Which is part of the fun of the film is all the
Subtle references and
Easter eggs, references to other movies, stuff like I think I sent to you was near the final fight scene of the movie. We have the one store which has the creator of Deadpool who notably couldn't draw feet. This joke has been made before in the Deadpool franchise. And it was, I can't remember word for word what the store said, but it had the creator and then it had like
Just Feet. Yeah.
So
in the same shot, the other stores are actually references to. There's a Copperhead's Place, which is a reference to a different Marvel character, Copperhead.
So tons and tons of references. Like Ryan Reynolds and the rest of the writing team definitely go hard on helping fans nerd out. Because obviously there's always something Easter eggs in, and not just Marvel films, but DC films as well.
Yeah.
But not to the same extent.
No, I mean, if you look at just the time when Deadpool and Wolverine first get to the Void and they have their fight, you see, I think it's like issue 6 of Secret Wars 3 on the ground behind him. There's an old Thor's helmet. You see the Captain America Hydra shield. You see an old Hellcarrier in the back. You see, obviously, the 20th Century Fox symbol. Well,
Yeah, that
giant
was
wall, I should say.
that was funny.
Yeah, I'm obviously missing things because there's a lot to it.
There is a ton of references, even just the Doctor Strange circle.
Which had 2 Infinity Stones in it, which don't really understand that, but we're going to ignore that because in Loki Season 1, there's like literally just a drawer full of Infinity Stones. But whatevs. Yeah, I mean, it was really cool to see all those characters. I'm a big X-23 fan, so I love being able to see her back on screen. Even seeing Elektra, Blade, and Gambit was great too. Johnny Storm. Yeah, is there anything you want to talk about otherwise for like Easter eggs, cameos, before we move on
as far as characters, I feel like it was fun to see. Obviously, seeing I'm sure, and Chris Evans has even said in interviews that he was really happy to be able to play Johnny Storm again. He loves the character, which I don't blame him in terms of you get to play a fun, cocky kid, and also Chris Evans is super young. That's 20 years ago. Obviously, he's played this, Captain America being his 3rd comic book character, technically.
4th, 5th.
But when he played Captain America, when he was first casted, is it his 4th? Because he was in Scott Pilgrim, and he was and he played the Human Torch. So that's
he was
2.
also in The Losers, which I think is pre-Captain America. He was also the voice of Casey Jones in the TMNT movie they did for the animated one. Chris Evans actually holds like this huge role for being this guy who has played these. I'm drawing blank on some ones that other ones he's done, but he's obviously done Captain America. But all 8 comic book movies. Okay, here we go. Captain America. He was Johnny Storm. He was in The Losers, which I don't know what year that. He was in Snowpiercer. He was in Push, which is also based on a comic book. So he's got a lot under his belt for sure.
I know but he was excited to come back. Then we also had Lady Deadpool.
Oh yeah, Lady Deadpool,
which is I think voiced by Blake Lively. I'm not sure if
she's in the suit or not.
But definitely voiced by Blake Lively.
We have both of his kids.
Yeah,
Kid Pool and Baby Pool are both of his kids as well,
which were in it. We had
the guy from Welsh. I don't know his name.
Yeah, we had someone from the Wrexham team, which Ryan Reynolds owns. If you've never seen Welcome to Wrexham,
Cowboy
he was
Deadpool
in the Welsh one.
Was Matthew McConaughey.
Yep.
Headpool was Nathan Fillion. Those are the only references I think I can remember. Other suits we saw were obviously Samurai Deadpool. We saw Deadpool 2099, which is the weird like android looking one. Trying to think of other Deadpools that we saw.
Technically speaking, we did see Dance Pool, but it's technically just we're supposed to believe it's Ryan Reynolds, but it was a dance double. I don't know if people have been seeing the clip popping off of the guy that got that, where his agent was all like, "I need you to learn the bye 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 dance now," and he's like, okay."
Okay.
Obviously, like you said, we had a bunch of Fox cameos. Technically, Stan Lee was still in the film.
That is true. He did have a cameo in the mid-credit scene,
which was nice to see. Just taking a quick look through some of the other ones. Yeah, other than that, we had, who was the Thor that was holding Deadpool?
Yes, that shot that people are like, okay, so that shot.
Because that was not Hemsworth.
It was.
But it wasn't our Hemsworth, like Chris Hemsworth. It was one of his brothers, maybe?
I'm pretty sure that's just a shot from Thor Dark World of him holding Loki, in all honesty.
So it was like repurposed footage.
Repurposed footage, from what I understand. Let me pull this up here.
Rob McElhenney was also in this. He was one of the TVA soldiers that gets just wrecked by Deadpool.
Yes.
who is
Also,
co-owner of Wrexham AFC with Ryan Reynolds.
also one of the TVA, I believe, is Tom Holland's brother
Oh,
or something like that. There's like a weird thing. I don't know exactly what it was. Confirmed the scene was lifted from 2013's Thor: The Dark World, replacing Loki with Deadpool. So that's what it is. It's a shot
yeah, it's
from
repurposed, yeah.
it's repurposed footage.
We also saw, obviously, a lot of the humor / references were very meta, very current. There's a reference to Hugh Jackman's real divorce.
There's a reference to what Will Smith did last year.
Yes.
The keep my country's name out your mouth.
Obviously, like you said, a lot of references in Happy's office. Deadpool does Spider-Man whipping.
Because that's the
In the
closest they
van?
can get to using Spider-Man. That's why the picture that we see in Hogan's office is the Iron Man helmet is covering Tom Holland, because they don't have Sony and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, there was just a lot of really good humor. We had Nice Pool making a fourth wall break to The Proposal.
So Ryan Reynolds' film
Yeah.
that he was in case you don't get that reference there. We can move on to things we don't like or have questions about.
Yeah, so lots of fun references, lots of really good jokes in terms of, I don't know how well they'll age in 10 years per se, but for current and
Current
especially
events.
and for millennials in general, some of those references will always be good.
Yeah.
But it was definitely solid. What you want from a Deadpool film, like I said, if you want to be entertained and want to laugh, it did that perfectly. And from that standpoint, it's a solid film. I would also say 7.5, maybe an 8 if you want to kind of ignore more of the story and it can start pushing. I think it's very close to 1. I think 2 is probably the worst Deadpool film, but I think this one's
agree
pretty
with that.
close. And a lot of that's also being carried by nostalgia for seeing a
Definitely.
lot of these characters back in their roles, or these actors playing the old characters like Elektra and stuff. But I guess we should talk about the elephant in the room, which is the plot and some of the potential ramifications if they continue to go the route in which we've seen in this film, because there was a lot of introductions to big things that could be MCU level events, which the biggest one being the concept of a anchor being, because we recently got RDJ casted as Doctor Doom, and we have no idea at this point what that means. Is that Doctor Doom, as in Victor Von Doom, he's going to be Victor Von Doom? They're going to make him look different, and maybe we don't even see him as Victor. We only see him as Doctor Doom, and we don't even really know it's
Yeah.
RDJ. Or, which a lot of people are scared of, is it a version of Tony Stark?
Well, here's the thing, right? There's 3 big theories that I can think of. The biggest easy one is, hey, will he be in the Fantastic Four film? Because Fantastic Four film, from what I understand, takes place in the 60s in an alternate timeline.
Yes.
So maybe we'll see him in there as Victor Von Doom. Or there is the other options where he's from a different timeline. He thinks that he failed his universe, so he's coming to the prime timeline to try and fix that one. But he realizes that the only way to do that is to become Doctor Doom, because that Tony's dead, so now he's becoming someone else. It could be a version of Victor Von Doom pretending to be Iron Man to start.
You know what's kind of funny, though, about this whole potential Victor Von Doom being Tony Stark and Tony Stark being obviously Iron Man, is that Victor Von Doom has been an Iron Man.
Infamous Iron Man is a great comic book.
But now we're Uno reverse carding it,
reversing it.
where
Yeah.
Tony Stark's like, haha, but I am Victor Von Doom, and
Yeah,
I'm going
but
to be Doctor Doom
I'm the Doctor Doom
instead
now.
of you being an Iron Man. So
Yeah,
I kind of find that
it's-
to be a little
It's funny.
ironic.
Yeah.
But my question is, was Tony Stark, from what we now know is 616, the main continuity universe for the MCU, was he the anchor being? Is the 616 getting destroyed? Who
Can you
are
destroy
the
the
anchor
prime timeline? That
Which
is
also
the
ruins
age-old
Loki.
question. It does.
beings? And ruins other things. But on top of that is, what the heck is an anchor being? And like we mentioned before, it introduces a lot of weird questions. One, why the average lifespan of a human is not as long as Wolverine. And Wolverine only lives
220 plus years.
Yeah.
Give or take a couple years.
The Earth is much older than that. That's just the Earth, not even the universe.
Yep.
So why is he the anchor being? And why does all of a sudden this random 200-year-old human cause a whole universe, which we know in these universes there's more than just human life.
Yep.
There's alien life all over the place. Why is that one character cause the whole universe to get destroyed? That's a little bizarre. We did read that maybe there's reincarnation, which introduces a whole other can of
whole
worms.
situation, yeah.
So that's obviously one big question mark. Followed up by another big question mark is the Wolverine staying in Deadpool's 10015,
Something like that, yeah.
some whatever this Deadpool universe is, him staying. But we talked about this off podcast, which is we've both read Secret Wars 3, which was a pretty solid Marvel story.
One of the least confusing Marvel stories that have come out in the last 15 years.
And that's when planets or universes are straight up colliding.
Battle
and destroying
world
one
is
another.
created. The Ultimate Universe and the main Marvel Earth 616 literally collide together,
and are like destroying each other.
which then introduces Emperor Doom, which could still be a potential with Avengers 6 being
Yep.
Secret Wars, Avengers 5 being Doomsday. So we'll see.
We'll see.
But-
But Wolverine staying could be a cause of disruption within the universes, causing
The collision.
I guess in this case would be multiple universes colliding,
Mm-hmm.
or just the destruction of multiple universes in general. But also Loki was supposed to save, but Loki saved timeline, not universes,
Yeah.
technically. So
Save the sacred timeline. Didn't. Not the universe.
not the sacred universes.
Gosh.
So we don't know if this is going to have an impact on that in terms of Wolverine staying, but it definitely leaves question marks of
Unless this
why
is exactly how it's supposed to be.
does him staying cause issues in terms of universes and timeline? 2, why is the TVA letting him do that?
Mhm.
That's a big question mark.
What?
How is Deadpool going across multiverses in general? Because Cable's device is for time traveling. So I also found that a little weird.
I mean, that just raises more questions because how does the events of Deadpool 2 with Cable coming from potential future where this guy grows up and kills a bunch of mutants and everything like that come from the same world where Charles has already killed a bunch of these mutants? Why is this fire dude from Deadpool 2 being able to kill these mutants that barely exist? Because we noticed that at the end of Logan that there's not really mutants left.
Yes, that's the other issue. Deadpool's universe, which is 10,005,
Mhm.
doesn't quite line up time-wise with Logan. We see in Deadpool 2, we see the young versions of the X-Men. And this movie takes place now, 2024. This is when it takes place. Logan takes place in 2029.
Yes.
That's only 5 years from now, and we're supposed to believe that Charles Xavier ages like something like 60 years in that point?
Yeah, I mean, this is just where it gets confusing. I mean, I'm a big fan of time travel, and like
It's always a mess.
But it's all like, but then you can make the argument with what Deadpool did at the end of Deadpool 2. That could reset partial
could've messed
timeline,
stuff,
and
yeah.
that could have caused a rift. And then, because it really depends too. Because when you jump back to Days of Future Past, and how does that affect the X-Men movies? Because at the end of Days of Future Past, Jean Grey and Charles Xavier are obviously still alive, even though Jean Grey died both in X2 and X3. Charles died in X-Men 3. So then, does Days of Future Past then cause 2 and 3 cease to exist? Because then also X2's villain is William Stryker, who was also the dude from X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is also the same dude that we see.
I think you're thinking
in-
too hard for your own X-Men. We
No,
can just
but-
throw them in another universe. They don't even have to be from 10,005.
Exactly.
Just strictly thinking of Old Man Logan-esque character from Logan.
Yep.
Being only 5 years away from this Deadpool movie because they're in the same universe. That's fact. That's known knowledge because he's literally the anchor being.
Yep.
So they say. But that's only 5 years apart. And in Deadpool 2, we see how young they are.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a...
We've created paradoxes, long story short.
It's a little bit of an oopsie. And like we mentioned, the new Wolverine staying, that's something that's already been explained to us within the Wanda and Vision show.
Yeah.
Where or was it WandaVision? No, it was Doctor Strange 2.
Yes.
Where Doctor Strange goes to another universe and basically gets mansplained by Reed Richards about
how the multiverse works and ripple effects.
yeah,
of
and the ripple
being in-
effects and how it can destabilize reality
Yeah.
and it can cause an incursion. This is where our theory of if Wolverine stays is that the first big incursion that's going to cause the lead up to the new Avengers films. We will see.
Yeah.
Maybe it has nothing and it's just a weird plot hole.
that we never talk about ever again.
And this plot hole is only relevant to the MCU as a whole. In Deadpool's movie solo wise, it kind of doesn't really matter.
As it stands right now, if you're watching all of the MCU, Deadpool and Wolverine,
Has
no impact.
it's just fun
It's just a fun movie full of
with
Easter
bringing
eggs.
with bringing the characters.
Now, my big thing is characters, where I sent you last night a description of who Cassandra Nova is in the comics, who Peter Wisdom is in the comics,
Yes.
and then us reading about who Mr. Paradox is in the comics. This is where I am whacked.
Some of them I accept are just changed in general when you think of something like what's her face from Deadpool 2 in the X-Force. Her character
Negasonic Teenage Warhead? No. Oh, Domino.
Domino, completely almost
Different but the same, but
yeah,
different.
like
Yeah.
completely different in terms of powers and stuff. So some of that stuff I'm like, well, whatever. But there was a few things that were kind of like my big issue with Cassandra
Cassandra Nova.
is how broken she is.
Yeah.
Like she is an Omega level mutant. And I guess she's supposed to be really evil, and I guess maybe she just had extreme tunnel vision. But it doesn't make much sense that one, she did let Deadpool and Wolverine go, and also that Deadpool and Wolverine could really, I don't know, outsmart her or beat her.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense for that. Also, are we not going to discuss the fact that, A, why would she keep Juggernaut alive? I know she was working for him, but like the helmet doesn't define who he is as a character if that's the only thing that's going to stop her. B, the Juggernaut helmet is slight importance to the plot. And there is not a single reference of how they are technically related. Like that's technically her stepbrother.
Yes.
That's just not talked about, which is not
But
an
it
end all
doesn't need
be
to
all.
be. It
That's
doesn't
just
need
me
to be.
being like, there's a very, very tiny fact that could have been mentioned here. That's me like full on going to the extreme and nitpicking.
Well, they didn't even go that much deep into Cassandra in terms of like, you just have to believe that she's the sister of Charles Xavier, and I'm assuming a
Still
lot
would.
of normal people don't know that he has a sister,
No.
and it's a twin sister at that, and he technically, as a baby, killed her in
They're
the womb
because he's just that good of his brain.
because his powers are just that broken,
Yeah.
and he sensed her evil intent.
Cassandra Nova was ranked as IGN's 50th greatest comic book villain of all time.
Like she
Couple
does
years
sound
back.
evil. I've read some stuff, and she
She does seem broken, that's for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
The two big characters outside of Cassandra Cain is Peter Poole, the best friend to Wade Wilson, who apparently exists in all of the Deadpool timelines. I'm going to read who he is in the comics. Peter Wisdom has the power to absorb ambient heat and solar radiation and release the absorbed energy from his fingertips as hot knives of pure thermal energy. Said to be as hot as the surface as the sun, he can leap from high distances and using the thermal energy to slow his descent. He can fire his hot knives as projectiles or leave them attached to his fingertips like claws for close physical combat. He also has years of experience in espionage from working for Black Air and British intelligence. Now, part of me thinks it'd be priceless for if we ever see this Peter character again, just be like, oh, by the way, with my training in the British intelligence, I've actually been lying to you the entire time, and I'm this broken character.
The lying thing would be funny. I just like that he was just a regular dude in Deadpool
just
2
saw the
that
end.
saw the ad, and they're like, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I just saw the ad. And they're like, and he's like, no, I can do it. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure.
I think that would just go so much further if they broke this character. Been like, oh, by the way, I'm actually super strong, but it's fine. And then the big thing, which I just learned before this, is Mr. Paradox.
This guy is the one I have some big issues with. Not only because he's a completely a character technically we've been introduced to technically
In the comics, yeah.
but also just the lack of speed and urgency from the TVA when his plan is discovered
Yeah.
is so like
Oh, she's a character from Loki as well.
yes.
Hunter B-15?
B-15, yeah.
Something like that? Yeah.
But the lack of urgency was very concerning
Yeah.
when this potentially was going to destroy all the universes.
Yeah. And also, Mr. Paradox in the comics is a future version of Mobius, who was Owen Wilson's character from the Loki show. So it just seems very odd that they decided to go with this character. Like, they could have just made an original character, or they could have done something else. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Those are kind of just like my big nitpick things. My questions that go, we can kind of, I have two questions here in the doc that we made here. One is obviously, we kind of chatted before the podcast episode of a lot of content says the MCU is Earth 199999.
Correct.
But in the movies, in Doctor Strange 2, it's called Earth 616. In this movie, it's called Earth 616. Spider-Man 2, Mysterio calls it Earth 616.
It
So-
appears that main continuity MCU is 616.
Outside of the MCU itself, in the comics,
it's referenced as a different Earth, which is
Yeah.
a bit confusing. But for the general viewer of the
MCU.
Marvel films, it's I think 616 easier to remember.
Yeah.
And they don't care about the comics,
straightforward.
so it makes sense. But also as someone who's read the comics, it was a bit
Slight confusing.
it was slightly confusing, but it's fine.
But that could have just been, again, a main Easter egg to the comics too, right?
Yeah.
And now my big thing is that at the end of the film, Deadpool talks to the TVA lady, and he's like, "Can you bring some of my friends back?" And all of a sudden, she's just, "Yeah, sure. Let me just go into the void and grab these people that are destroyed."
Which was also-
and cease to exist. But
That's also weird though that the TV
yeah,
would
because
just
now
be like,
X-23 and Wolverine's from a different timeline, and technically speaking, that X-23 is from the future of that same timeline.
correct. Which is I don't know
So-
why she was picked to go to the void in general is kind of
Yeah, that's a
that was
whole
a
other
weird
thing.
weird choice. But the other ones make sense because they're kind of like it's almost like a joke within itself because
Yeah,
those characters
don't exist anymore.
are like sent to the void in terms of even just history of
the MCU
comic
and
movies.
Yeah.
Right? No one cares about Blade. They're
That
like,
would've
oh
been
yeah,
a
Blade doesn't exist.
alternate
Electro,
universe.
poof, forget about it. Forget about the
alternate
Daredevil,
universe.
forget about the Electro movie.
Yeah.
Forget about both of them.
Gambit, another would have
Gambit
been a random timeline.
never happened.
Yeah, Johnny Storm, another timeline. Like
So,
all of these things.
Those were fun, and it almost is hilarious that they were sent to the void because they're like almost in the void of its own for real life.
But then you can make the same argument about X-23 as like Pyro and Sabretooth, depending on how that works too.
X-23, I could
But
always
that
see
one-
coming in the MCU now that we know there's mutants, and we will definitely be hopefully be seeing X-Men in general.
Well, we've seen one.
But I mean like seeing all of them, like seeing
Yeah.
the team as a whole.
Agreed.
Obviously, like I think I speak for both of us when I say I would love an X-Men versus Avengers level.
That
film.
would be great, and they maybe actually do the Dark Phoenix.
That would
potential.
be,
but-
both of those stories would be
Yeah.
fantastic. But I'm just saying X-23, that's how you get around the whole, you can't replace Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, you just
You just bring X-23.
I don't want to say that that's what they're doing with Captain America, but it's the same principle in the sense that like you
We
get
have Captain America
a new
still.
story.
Yeah.
Well, having X-23, we have Wolverine now.
An existing Wolverine from the comics, though.
Yeah, existing Wolverine from the comics and not doing
Because
the
I've seen
character
Sam
dirty.
Wilson's character getting hate for being Captain America, but in the comics, that
this
is what happens. So it's almost perfect.
This is also what happens in the comics too, where
And we have
Wolverine-
X-23, who is Wolverine.
all new Wolverine, baby.
So
But yeah,
I think that she had the potential to come back
agreed. And I'm happy she did.
and potential to stay.
For Blade, Elektra, and Gambit, Blade and Elektra, we don't know what happened to them.
Yes, and I
Gambit-
don't think we'll be seeing them again, but it was fun in this movie.
Yeah. Gambit, on the other hand,
I think it has a lot of potential.
there's
Not
an Easter
for-
egg.
Not for a solo film. I don't think Gambit can carry a solo film.
No. Unfortunately, he is a B-list character. He has no
Super fun in the
huge
X-Men.
film. Yeah.
In the X-Men 97 and the X-Men straight up 90s series as a whole. I
Even-
always knew Gambit as an X-Men.
Yeah.
Like when I think of the X-Men, I think of him as part of the core team. But I don't understand why Fox ever thought that Gambit would carry his own
He has
film.
an interesting origin, so maybe that's what they were kind of going for. But I'm not entirely sure. But we do see at the end, it's an Easter egg towards Gambit, where it's the post-credit scene. Deadpool's back in the TVA, and he's like, "Oh, I gotta show you the clip of what Johnny Storm actually said," kind of thing. And when he's in that room and he's like showing the clips and stuff like that, one of the screens full on shows Channing Tatum as Gambit, just like walking around doing his own thing. So
I think he's just going to be part of the X-Men team.
I think so.
they're
If,
going to bring him back
if they do end up bringing Channing Tatum back, he'll just be part of the
and
X-Men.
bring in the X-Men.
Yeah.
I am interested to see what the X-Men team ends up looking like. If we see actors we know already, or if they're just going to go completely recast. But
I mean, I think Kelsey Grammer came back to play Beast at the end of
Yes.
Marvels, right? It was the same actor.
so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Overall, Deadpool was a very entertaining, made you laugh, very meta.
Did
Perhaps
his job
not
as a
the s-
Deadpool film.
Perhaps not the strongest plot-wise. There definitely are some holes if you're being nitpicky. If you kind of turn off your brain and just enjoy it, it's a solid film.
Yeah, there's
would
some
highly
good chuckles
recommend.
for sure,
And also kind of toned down from the previous two Deadpools.
which I'm okay with.
Pretty much just over exaggerated amount of blood and gore, like violent deaths of things,
Yeah.
and just a lot of swearing.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it.
If you enjoy Hugh Jackman, if you enjoy Ryan Reynolds, give this movie a watch.
Yep, it was.
The
The only thing that can beat this is if we ever see a Spider-Man with Deadpool for a movie.
honestly, if you want to skip the first Deadpool movies, like the 1 and 2, you probably could, really.
No, you gotta watch Deadpool 1.
At
And
least
Deadpool 2
Deadpool
is
1.
important in terms of setting up what a lot
Just
of
the device at the beginning.
not just that, but the characters. It's one of those few movies where 1 and 2, all of those characters are seen
They
again.
do return at the beginning, yeah.
Right? Where what has that many characters returning? Maybe Spider-Man with Peter's classmates,
Yeah.
and that's about it. And even with that, it's only like 3. It's like
Three.
MJ,
Flash and
Flash,
Ned.
and yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So, and in Deadpool, it's we had a taxi driver in all 3 movies.
That is true. Going back to something earlier that I just clicked to, when we were talking about characters that are reoccurring throughout the MCU, one of the teachers from Spider-Man is also one of those characters. So one of the teachers that Peter has in the Spider-Man movies that's on the trip with them to Europe and everything like that is a student in the Incredible Hulk film. So in the Incredible Hulk film, when he pretends to be a pizza delivery guy and goes upstairs and gives pizza to that random tech dude,
Yep.
that is the same actor that plays the teacher in Spider-Man. It's confirmed that that's the same character.
Oh, that it's the same character.
It's the same character. So he but you know what I mean? Just like going on, like obviously
Yeah.
that's more of like a more supporting role.
That's
but-
just he got casted in the same movie, and they're like, "Oh yeah, same character." You know what I mean? Like a little
Yeah.
bit of an oversight, I think. But
But anyways, in conclusion, we've reached an hour.
yeah, we've reached
So,
an hour.
I think we've done pretty
it's
good.
It's worth watching. If you're still here with us, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Drop a like if you're on YouTube. Drop a comment if you've seen Deadpool and if you enjoyed it. Tune in next week where we are going to talk about My Hero Academia, a celebration of the story. So look forward to that. And don't
Ending.
forget to check out our link down below for our link tree for all of our social media as well as our Discord. We'd love to have you join us, join the community.
and Anime of the Month, Odd Taxi. We'll be talking about that at the end of the month of August, obviously. So stay tuned for that. If you're a fan of watching anime, feel free to watch it alongside us. Let us know what you think.
Exactly.
And from there, we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
All right, bye.
Bye.
TNMP, the Nerdy Misfit Podcast. Don't forget to join the island by dropping a follow. Thank you. And see you next week.